My topic for this lab assignment focused on the confidence and fear of public speaking and how big of a role confidence plays in building a good public speech. For my interview, I decided to interview my assistant basketball coach and head of the graduate program here in Moravian. So I was exposed to the true meaning of the fear of public speaking. I know we talked about it as a class and how big of a role it plays, but I also want to understand how big of a role confidence plays in overcoming that fear and how to build confidence as a public speaker. Coach Rossi was very informative and gave personal insight on his experiences through public speaking and certain circumstances where he did a good job and a not so good job and how he grew as a public speaker. With him being my basketball coach, I'm comfortable around him, he's comfortable around me, and we actually are very similar when it comes to just being people. So he helped me understand the growth of public speaking and that fear can be a very big problem for people who want to pursue public speaking. But as we mentioned in class also, public speaking is seen really in every profession that anyone goes into. You're going to have to do it at some point. So getting able to get over that fear and really get an understanding of how to portray a good speech is very important. So I wanted to take a closer look into that and see maybe him being a good public speaker, how he overcame that, because he did state that he at one point was not the best public speaker and kind of struggled with it. And not that anyone that we, like in our class or anything, struggles with it, but just ways to get better and continue to grow as a good public speaker. So he said that it takes time and effort, which I agree with. I think we agreed on a lot of things throughout the interview. I think it does take a lot of time and effort and practice to definitely overcome that fear, because in all reality, it is scary, like we talked about. I mean, his big point that I definitely agree with is that the biggest fear is that you're afraid people are going to judge you for making a mistake, or they ask a question and you don't know the answer. How are you going to respond? I didn't really look into that. Yeah, you could say that, and that would be truthful, and that's what you should say, but at the same time, I understand why someone wouldn't want to say that. He gave tips that I feel will help me continue to progress as a public speaker. I'll put it into practice and continue to use it to my advantage, because I feel he did give some good insight. He really talked about his personal experiences and his fear individually. He did have a fear at one time. He said as he grew and got more experience and he got older and was looked at more of as a professional in his field, that it was more understanding when he was in a group of people that were all had similarities and like ideas, rather than just a random group of people. He knew the people he was talking to, he knew his audience, and he knew the message he wanted to deliver day in and day out, because it's all about the graduate program here in Moravian or Moravian basketball. So as I mentioned, we're very similar people. I feel that's the main reason I chose to interview him, because I know I didn't know he had a poor public speaking background before this, but I do look at him as a good public speaker with anything really, pre-game speeches, whether he's trying to tell us something, whether he's talking in front of the whole team, whether he's talking in front of a group of people. I feel like he's always had a little bit of confidence about him, and he really delivers his message in a good way. I came to find out that he had many experiences where he had poor public speaking experiences that weren't very good for him. So I asked him a lot of questions, mainly about what his poor experiences were like, and he said that they were challenging and they were nerve-wracking. They weren't always the best, but I asked him other ways he improved, and I feel he gave very good insight on how to improve. He talked about being more confident and being prepared, and I feel those are two really main points that we talk about in class all the time. Building that confidence goes along with being prepared. So to gain that confidence, you have to be prepared. And to be prepared, you got to be confident. They kind of go hand in hand with each other. To build that confidence, you got to understand what you're trying to say. What is the message you want to get across, and how are you going to deliver that message? If you're going to deliver it in a meaningful way and really show passion about it, you better know what you're talking about. If you're going to act as if you don't know anything or what you're even talking about, then you're probably going to have a boring, not very informative speech. No one's going to know what you're talking about if you can't tell them the information that you're wanting to tell them. So I feel he gave some really good points with that, because I feel that's very important. Confidence and preparation really go into it. You should, as we talk about in class though, you don't want it to be as if you're reciting something, as if you're reading it right off a piece of paper or something, because then it kind of just gets boring and it's almost like a classroom setting. in that sense. I feel like I would get bored if I was just sitting there listening to someone read off a piece of paper the entire time during a speech. So I feel he gave some good insight on that, on how to really elaborate. He said he struggles with impromptu speeches, which he says he's not very good at it just right off the top, but I agree. Those are challenging, obviously, for anyone, I feel. Just right off the top, you better know what you're talking about if you're doing an impromptu, but he said his growth really came from experience, and I think that's really what we're starting to see in our class, too. That's one thing he said that I kind of thought about after the interview, and I kind of put it into perspective and thought, well, now that I think about it, I look back to the first day of class, or you might have had a speech, or our first speech in class, whatever it was, and everyone was nervous. Everyone was shaking, doing all the nonverbals, all the stuff that was blatantly obvious that they were nervous. But now, as we progress, we still see those partially in some speeches, but I feel we're definitely making advancements as a group, and I feel like, obviously, Coach Rossi didn't talk to everyone in the class, but I feel like the insight he's giving me will definitely benefit me for my future speeches. Being prepared, I've tried to be prepared for as much as I can for the speeches. I mean, one of them was impromptu, the other one you could prepare for, so it was tough to come up with things off the top for impromptu. I struggle with that as well. I feel his information was very helpful for me going into a speech so I could prepare better. As a college student, sitting in front of my classmates sometimes can even be more nerve-wracking than as if I was sitting in front of someone random, because my classmates, I know I'm going to see more. I feel like it makes me a little more nervous. As he mentioned, making mistakes is the main fear of public speaking, and I feel making mistakes in front of your peers or friends can also be the most nerve-wracking part, because you feel that the audience is going to be very judgmental, and if they're paying attention to your speech, they're going to catch the little stuff. But if you portray it in the right way, it'll definitely come off in a flowing manner. I feel Spiroli in the TED Talk we watched did a great job of just taking his time. His pace was fantastic. He would take his time, gather his thoughts. He would pause. It was as if he was reading it off a projector screen. It seemed like, but it was great to listen to. His flow, his tone, his excitement, his passion drew the audience's attention. And that's another thing Coach Rossi and I talked about, how we could influence our speeches through not only what we're saying, how we're saying it. That's definitely a big factor. I like to keep my tone. I'm a very laid-back person, so sometimes it's hard for me to get excited about a topic. But when I'm talking about something I like, I can't. The fact that I'm so laid back, you can tell when I'm excited about what I'm talking about, because I get antsy about it. So Coach Rossi and I talked about his growth of public speaking, the fear, and the confidence it takes to continuously get better. His main points seem to focus on preparation and practice. He also mentioned getting to know the audience, which I thought was interesting because I never thought about that before. If I was speaking in front of a big group of people, I probably never would imagine myself before the speech going up to them and maybe introducing myself and having a basic conversation about what my speech is going to be about. But he mentioned that's a great way to get to know people and just kind of stay calm throughout the speech, because you know what the other people are thinking beforehand. You know that they're almost looking up to you. They're here to see you and listen to what you have to say because they think you're either on a higher level or you show some sort of importance to this topic. So there's a reason they're there to see you do a public speech if you're doing something that's informative. There's a reason they're there. They're here to listen to you because they feel you're an important person for that topic. I thought that was very interesting, because that's something I never really thought about before. If you get to talk to an audience before you really tell your speech, you get to meet new faces and just you get a better understanding of what the audience is going to bring, because you want the audience to pay attention to you as much as possible. So I felt that was a very interesting part of public speaking that we haven't really mentioned. I mean, we talked about getting involved with your audience and keeping them focused so you're on topic, and getting there with the attention getters and making sure they're focused. But getting to know them on a personal level for a little bit, I feel like was a very interesting part. I feel like Coach Rossi, gave very important information that was very helpful to me, and I hope to use it for future speeches and just continuously grow as a public speaker through, obviously, this class and through the advice he gave me, as well as Coach Potts' the previous lab assignment. So I just hope to continue to grow and continue to become a better public speaker through every lab assignment we do.